The final substantive question that I am going to respond to is one about Rawls. And the question on the quiz, that it was a true-false question about, Rawls' theory is deeply other-regarding. So I think I used that terminology pretty specifically in the lecture. But just to kind of recap, to be other-regarding is to be, at least in the context of like distributive justice, is to be very concerned with how much stuff like everybody has and what other people have, particularly like relative to others, right? So you're like very concerned, that, well, I want to make sure that this person has enough stuff and, but like you're thinking about them as like a concrete person, right? You're like, I want James to have enough stuff. Or I'm concerned that Rebecca has a lot more stuff than I do. That just doesn't seem fair, right? These are kinds of other regarding ways in which you would be thinking about distributive justice, right? So like you're concerned about sufficiency and you're also concerned about like relative comparisons. One of the really interesting things about Rawls' theory is that despite the fact that from the original position, so it's all original, it's all like basically the story is we have this kind of hypothetical game that we play, like we sort of have a procedure and we have to imagine that we didn't know certain kinds of things. And from that position of ignorance, like behind the veil of ignorance as it's seen, we make up these rules that are supposed to determine how people get stuff. And what kinds of distributions are, like we say, like, well, here should be the rules. But part of the point is that as long as the rules are followed, that's it. Justice has been served. Justice is about those rules. Now, when we're thinking about how to make the rules, the idea is that we know a lot about places, like different kinds, like you might know that there are 100 bakers and 100 farmers, and this wouldn't make sense at all, and 100 shepherds, and there are 30 kids, and right, you might have some sort of facts about the distribution of society. You might have, like, and how the economy works. And you might know that most people prefer this kind of thing, or that most people like have these kinds of religious views, and some people have these kinds of religious views, and like so you have full information from this kind of God's eye view of all the peoples. Here's the thing. It's like you're going to get dropped in and you're going to have to be one of those people, but you don't know who it's going to be. So the goal is to, from that position, like, all this stuff, you're going to have to live out a life in, like, somewhere, right? Like, you're going to be assigned a position. Like, you have kind of rough ideas about, like, what different people, like, what the people think, but you don't know who's it going to be, right? So, like, Rawls' idea is that, like, from, if that's the position that you're in, right? Like, you have to make this sort of, like, weird hypothetical decision. Like, there are certain rules that you're going to, like, have society follow, because you want to make sure that the rules are going to do the best that they can not to, like, screw over any particular groups. But like, you can't, you can't do much, right? Like, and so, and the other thing is that he thinks that from the original position, he also thinks that people wouldn't care so much about inequality, per se. So he thinks that, like, if you were in the original position, it wouldn't bother you. Like, you wouldn't say that everybody had to have all the same amount of stuff, because you'd be like if you, like, it turns out if you try to make sure that everybody has the exact same amount of stuff, practically speaking, as a matter of empirical, like, just how it works, everybody has less stuff. So if you're willing to acknowledge some kinds of inequality, it turns out that like everybody has a little bit more, and then like some people have like even more. But if you're thinking about like different, so this is just like the Pareto principle. It's like a theory. It's like a part of economics, and so Rawls builds that in. But one of the things that means is that like you're not so worried about making sure that everybody has the same amount of stuff. Like some people are going to have more, and you're just not going to care about that. So it's not other regarding in the sense that you're making these comparisons and trying to make sure everybody has the same stuff. From the original position, it's just like this sort of God's eye view. And it's not really other regarding in the sense that like you're not thinking about people in this really caring, like I care about what Joe has or what like Rebecca has, and particularly how much stuff Joe has relative to Rebecca. Like all you're thinking about is like, I'm going to be dropped in here and I want to make sure I have some stuff. Like, but I don't know where I'm going to fall. And so in that sense, it's actually really deeply not other regarding, because once, like, you set up the rules to sort of do the best that you can, but there are going to be some people who are sort of like at the bottom of the distribution. Like they have the least amount of stuff. And Rawls doesn't think you should care any more about those people than like the people like that are like higher up here. Like he just doesn't think that matters. He just doesn't think that's what justice is about. Justice is about making sure that there are these fair procedures. And the whole fairness thing is really just captured by, is this as best off as we can make everybody, such that like if you were in this position of full knowledge that you would agree to those rules and then like just be sort of randomly dropped into a particular social position. That's all he cares about. And so in this sense, even though there is this kind of like principle, like difference principle, his view is not very other regarding.